So that first moment is very much a sense of panic, not unlike if you've got a small child and you're at the supermarket and you look behind you and your child's not there and you panic for a minute. But there's a part of your brain that says, you know what, logically, they're probably close by. I'll call out their name. I'll get some other people to help me locate them. And of course, I'll find them. So for families of missing people on those first few days, it's very much a sense of if I can just reach the right person, somebody will be able to help me solve this.
Dr. Sarah Wayland is a global expert on missing persons. Based in Australia, she spent most of her working life dealing directly with families of long-term missing people.
Her research has been used to train and advise police forces, as well as helping missing persons organisations throughout the world.
For families who then have to live long-term with not knowing where somebody is, that recognition that despite having reached out to the police, who are the professionals, sometimes search and rescue organisations, and even to the media, that when they've done all of those things, that their mind tells them, if you do this, it will give you the positive resolution, that is incredibly hard to live with. And I think that gets harder and harder over time.
From Rumours in Iceland
and RTE in Ireland,
I'm Anna Marsibil Clausen.
And I'm Liam O'Brien.
And this is Where is Jón? Episode 5, Rumours and Secrets.
Throughout the last 6 years, those closest to Jón have dealt with the pain of losing him in very different ways. When they left Dublin and returned to Iceland in the summer of 2019, many of Jón's family needed to take a step back from everything for their own mental and physical well-being.
But during that first year, Jón's partner Jana and his sister Anna Hildur kept checking in with the Garda investigation team. In fact, they kept replaying over and over again, what if things were done differently?
Jón disappears. On a Sunday, police comes. They don't search his room or take his equipment like computer and phone. Day after house cleaning has come, cleaned the room, and then they're like, oh, do you have like DNA of Jón? You know, a week later, me and Jana were like, they don't need his computer or phone, and we asked, do you want? Oh yeah, maybe yeah. And then when they got the computer, I say, okay, if you're going to check his Facebook or email or something, don't you need somebody to translate? No, it's okay, it's okay. And then I got his computer and I was like, they did not check it. And I checked it. I went through everything. Email, Facebook, recent search and everything. I don't think they did this. That's what you would do, right?
What Anna Hildur found was a pretty empty inbox. It was as if Jón had not received any emails between August 2018 and February 2019. Had everything been deleted? No one knows. Jón didn't work a desk job and probably didn't receive a lot of emails. And it seems he was good at deleting spam, so maybe it meant absolutely nothing. But the opportunity to make sure seems long gone.
And when I told the police, finally when they listened to me, they sent it to Gmail or whoever hosts Gmail and get the information that after a month, you cannot, recall the deleted items.
After Jón went missing, Gardaí told his family that they tried and failed to crack open Jón's mobile phone.
They couldn't open it. There was no chance to open the phone for the police.
And about a year later, Gardaí posted Jón's phone and tablet back to his family in Iceland.
But we received the phone here, and I have a friend who's very clever, a girlfriend, and she could open it, because of course you can open the phone.
So, Liam, I've printed out some emails.
Okay.
And looking at them now, I can see that Jón's partner Jana says that when they did manage to open Jón's phone, she finds it strange that there are no SMS messages in it, which does look odd. And then Jón, his contact list has just a few names stored. it's just Jana, his children, his ex-wife Nina, like really only those closest to him.
Yeah.
And again, that's odd.
Right.
And then they look through his browser history on Google Maps, and then they can see that the last 3 addresses Jón searched for were all in Dublin, which presumably he looked up after arriving into Dublin.
That makes sense.
The first one was the Bonington Hotel. We know why he looked that up, because that's where the Dublin Poker Festival was on. And the next, is it a restaurant?
Yeah, it is. So it's a restaurant in Dublin called Mr. Fox's, or Mr. Fox. It's in Parnell Square, which is, in the middle of Dublin City. It's at the top of O'Connell Street, the biggest and main street in the city centre. And Mr. Fox it's a really well-known restaurant, actually, because it's even recommended in the Michelin Guide. Okay,
and then the third and final address he looks up for is for a house that has a specific name. That seems kind of random.
Yeah, and this one is in the Dublin Mountains, kind of on the edge of the city, looking down over it. We don't know why Jón was looking for a private address in the Dublin Mountains.
Well, they list those addresses, and then Jón's family later hands his digital devices into the Icelandic police. And it seems they did nothing further with this information, or even the devices themselves.
For the last number of years, Jón's family have been left wondering if these addresses meant anything. Could Jón have been looking for a place that he was supposed to go and meet someone?
It was only in the last few weeks, when looking through Jón's Facebook Messenger, that we found the answer. Before coming to Dublin, Jón had asked a friend for suggestions on things to do while in Ireland.
And that friend suggested a famous Irish pub in the Dublin Mountains, Johnny Fox's, a place known for its Guinness, music, crack and Irish dancing, and which just so happens to be adjacent to the private house address Jón had tapped on his Google Maps.
Add in that restaurant in the Dublin city centre, Mr. Fox, and it suggests that all Jón was trying to do in the hours before he went missing was trying to locate the famous Johnny Fox's pub so he could bring Jana on a little surprise. Another sign of Jón planning ahead, even whilst in Dublin.
A thing you might have thought about from the very start of this story is what happened to Jana's passport. So let's go back to that exact moment in episode 1 where we found that out, to Jana and Jón's apartment on the night before he left for Dublin.
Every time we go abroad, he goes to the safe. I have a safe box that I keep every important stuff, like passport. He always goes day before, and he look at this safe. He did it. I saw he opened it the day before. And I don't know why he didn't, hey, your passport isn't here.
In the months that followed Jón's disappearance, Jana often thought about this. Did Jón hide her passport? Did he want to travel on his own? Was he trying to stop her from coming? There were no answers until the autumn of 2019.
So, did Jón hide Jana's passport?
No, he didn't. Because we found the passport like 6 months later. And the passport was in the car of my sister's. And I had used it when I was taking the exam in university. My car had broken down at that time, and I was on her car. And that was a car that broke also down, so she wasn't using it. So nobody thought to look at that place. So, but 6 months later, she was throwing the car away and took out my passport, and oh fuck, he didn't take it.
Did you wonder until you found the passport?
Yeah, I did. Because still to that day, I really hope that he just disappeared by himself. He's having a great life somewhere. So.
We already met Dr. Sarah Wayland at the start of this episode. Sarah's research has allowed her to specialise in the unique form of trauma that families of missing persons experience. It's known as ambiguous loss.
Ambiguous loss manifests itself in a very similar way for all families of missing people. What if they never find out what happened to somebody and they have to live the rest of their days with that ambiguity? I think that that's where we start to understand that this type of loss is far more traumatic. When there are known or certainties around a grief and loss experience, when there's a body, when you can have a funeral, then you do have a sense of accepting the reality. Families of missing people are not afforded that right.
After Jón's disappearance, his daughters, Julia and Helena, reacted very differently to his loss. Something their mother could see, especially in Helena, who struggles to remember her dad now.
And the grief is different. For like she is 11, she is 15. It's not the same.
I also packed it kind of away, and I don't really have that many memories. I think I just blocked them. Every memory I have that, I have like maybe 3, because I just blocked everything else. They're somewhere, but they're not. I can't find them.
When it became clear that their dad was a long-term missing person, Jón's daughters Helena and her older sister Julia enrolled in a therapy group for children whose parents have died.
Yeah, I remember I went to like one of the meetings. We were doing kind of like a workshop where we were talking about our parents that we had lost. And there was like what's their name? How old are they? How did they die? When did they die? And I could write his name and age, and that was about it.
Yeah, we also did that in the trips we went. We did like a stone. They painted it white, but we wrote their name and then something we wanted to say to them, and then when they died. But I couldn't write when he died, so I just write down when he went missing.
Through her tears, Helena hands us this stone.
It's so difficult to talk about.
So it says in Icelandic, it's a grey flat stone. And so she's painted it white, covered it with little crosses. And it says, it's stars. It says, Jón Þröstur Jónsson, I miss you more than anything. Come home.
I think that the part that we often miss for families of missing people is that we consider it as a type of grief, but it's actually a type of trauma. And trauma requires really specialised help to sit with. You are living in the space of trauma repetitively for days and months and years.
8 months after Jón disappeared, October 30th, 2019, was the first birthday that he didn't celebrate with some member of his family. By that time, all of Jón's family had long left Ireland and returned home to Iceland, all apart from his brother Daniel.
Daniel had initially arrived to Ireland just days after Jón disappeared. He stayed and searched for those first few months before returning back home.
I was studying law in the University of Reykjavik. I had my final studies coming up and I went to school and I just couldn't focus. I couldn't pay attention. Then I took the exams. Then I just decided to go in June.
Daniel couldn't settle back home in Iceland. Unlike his siblings, he had no children at the time. And since Jón disappeared, his long-term relationship with his girlfriend ended. Not long after his return to Dublin, Gardaí did another public appeal for information on Crime Call, where Daniel spoke.
I mean everything, to know if he's alive or if he's not, just to know where he is, bring him home. People could start living their lives again.
Now, back in Dublin, not only did Daniel feel that bit closer to his older brother, Jón, but he was also falling in love.
When I was in Dublin, I met this woman, her name is Natalia, who was a nice change of environment to meet someone who was just, was like not in this chaos. And it was like a nice friendship that just evolved from that. It was like kind of like a light in all my darkness, and it was like helping me a lot psychologically and mentally through everything that was going on. Just felt such a strong connection with her that I just couldn't ignore it.
Living in the shadow of someone close to you who has disappeared is unimaginably hard. You're trying to get on with your own life, but everything is defined by the moment they vanished.
Having found unexpected happiness just a few months after Daniel and Natalia moved in together, they made a life-changing decision.
We got married like later that year in 27th of November 2019.
Daniel's wedding to Natalia was a low-key affair. Everyone in his family was happy for him, but no one was really able to celebrate in Jón's absence.
For Jón's partner Jana, throughout that first year, the not knowing what happened to him meant she got stuck. Emotionally, physically, psychologically. Not only was Jón her every waking thought, but when she did manage to get some sleep, he was there too, and still is.
But that dreams are like I'm always chasing him and always nearly grabbing him. And that went for a long time. And that was really hard dreams. I'm so close to catching up on him. But now it's just like I'm having a conversation with him. And I always wake up when I ask, where are you? And he's going to answer me. And then just blink, I'm waking up.
As that first year moved on, each of Jón's family found different ways of coping with his loss. For Jón's stepson, Aron, he was still a young child when Jón vanished. So his memory of that time is, well...
fuzzy. Very fuzzy. And in fact, the next year was actually, I felt almost completely numb most moments. The only times I really felt any emotions were when I was hanging around my family or interacting with people, which I didn't do much. I just know that I wasn't okay at that time.
So then at what point did your ideas start to shift? Like, were you hopeful that he would come back and then something changed?
You always have hope. Doesn't matter how long it's been. You always have that sliver of hope he'll come back. I will always question how he went missing. Even though I know most of the story, you will never know the full story unless he gets found. Like me hoping he'll come back, but still realizing that he's probably not, makes it in a weird way still easier to move on, because the hope drives me forward that I might just one day see him again. And every time I feel like I'm falling down, all I think is he would be really proud of me. And then I feel better.
We've already examined the possibility that Jón took his own life, or that he was in an accident, which resulted in his body being hidden. And both scenarios seem very unlikely.
We've also heard the sliver of hope that some of Jón's family hold on to, that he could be alive somewhere. But is that a reality, or a coping mechanism in an awful situation?
Research and data around people who deliberately go missing is something Dr. Sarah Wayland has a lot of experience with.
Because of the way that we live our lives with technology and identification, how we move about the world, the fact that Jón was in a different country, it's very difficult to assume a new identity and to live happily elsewhere without ever coming to the attention of somebody else, whether that be through CCTV images, AI, facial recognition, passport control, immigration, all of those sorts of things. Invariably, it's that if a person is missing long term and they have not been located, then it's either that they may have died through misadventure, may have died by suicide, may have died via homicide. And that's about it.
Jón does not match the profile of most missing person cases in Ireland. For starters, Jón was 41 years old, and the average age of a long-term missing person in Ireland is just 22.
And apart from people who've sought refuge from developing countries, it's really unusual for someone who travelled from another country to go missing in Ireland. Jón is the only person, not just from Iceland, but from all of Scandinavia, to have ever gone missing in Ireland.
And then there's the timing. Jón went missing within 24 hours of arriving in Ireland for the first time, having just landed in Dublin airport the day before. Wouldn't it have been so much easier to just keep going and fly somewhere else if he was trying to deliberately vanish? And remember, Jón left his hotel room without his passport. And in their interview with Rumours, the Garda investigative team said they checked all travel routes out of Ireland in the weeks after Jón disappeared.
We have also conducted inquiries at the local ports, hospitals, airports, taxis and the hotels that go out the country here. Nothing has come back to us.
Frank Ahern is a privacy expert and a New York Times best-selling author of the book How to Disappear. Frank has investigated people who've gone missing, and he's also helped people disappear to start a new life.
There's the ones who dream about disappearing, and it's like a cathartic sort of thing where they go through the motions of planning a disappearance, but they'll never go. And then there's those who, you know, for lack of a better term, it's like the oh shit moment. Something disastrous happens in their life, and they think the best option is to pick up and go. But it almost always comes down to like money, violence, and information.
There was some speculation that Jón had an oh shit moment when he lost up to €6,000 playing poker in the hours before he vanished. That could have been a reason to take his own life or disappear. But Jón had lost amounts that size, and bigger, much bigger, throughout his years playing poker. Sadly, winning and losing is just part of the highs and lows that come with gambling.
To successfully disappear, you need a number of things. To begin with, you have to have been planning far in advance, so your every move is calculated. And of course, you have to have enough money gathered before you disappear.
You need money to survive, and you need to earn money. So the problem is, how do you earn money without being traced? It always comes down to, how are you going to survive financially? All the signs would happen before they disappeared. Meaning, you know, movement of money, you know, did they go see people that they don't normally see beforehand? It's really a question of, you look for the things that were not of the norm before they disappeared. It's rare that people will just walk into the sunset. Most people plan their disappearance if they're going to disappear.
Jón doesn't fit into any of this. There were no signs in the months before he disappeared that he was planning anything other than his normal life in Iceland. And there were no signs that he stashed money away. In all honesty, Jón couldn't afford to disappear.
Someone we've not yet met in this series is a stepbrother of Jón's, a half-brother of Jón's half-brothers, David and Daniel, and his name is Gunnar. Gunnar is now an addiction counsellor, having been an addict himself for some years. He's very clear on the chances of Jón disappearing to create a new life.
Regarding, you know, to disappear, you know, I smile about it because you can't do it. You need to have this extreme mental capacity to be able to do this. You need to be really extremely smart. And you need to be some kind of a sociopath as well, because you are connecting. It's like committing suicide, but you are staying and reliving the disconnection with the people who love you, you know, every day, every time you wake up. So it means that you need to be a sociopath, some kind of a sociopath. You need to be extremely smart to make a living. You need to have a place to stay. You need to have some kind of a stable foundation. And Jón wasn't even able to have this while being visible in his own life, you know, because he was all over the place doing all kinds of things. And you need to have this financial capacity as well. You need to have a lot of money, and I don't think he had. Not to say that Jón was dumb in any way, but you need to be, you know, I wouldn't be able to do it, far from it. I mean, I'm not smart enough to be able to do stuff like this. And I'm not a sociopath. And Jón wasn't either, you know.
When you deduct those possibilities,
he was killed. He was snapped, probably into a car, and he was killed. Easy as that.
In the months following Jón's disappearance, there were plenty of shady rumours circulating within the Icelandic poker world. That Jón was attacked, killed, buried. But none of them named a perpetrator. Until, over a year later, a name suddenly began to emerge. We're going to call this individual Alex. Eventually, two apparently separate sources will suggest that Jón was murdered by this individual, Alex, in Dublin. And it was Gunnar who was told it first.
I got a phone call, and there was a man who told me that he had information about what happened to Jón. And I asked him what he had, and he told me that there was a man, and he was there, and he was assigned to a job to take an Icelandic man out, kill him, and which he did. But the problem was that he killed the wrong man.
When Gunnar got this call in the summer of 2020, he phoned a friend of his, an ex-addict who at one time would have known those involved in the criminal underworld in Iceland, to see if he knew Alex.
He told me that he knew who he was. He called him a pappakassi. It's like a cardboard box, which means he's hollow. He's no one in importance, And he told me that he'd been living here in Iceland for some years, and he had problems with the Albanian mafia here in Iceland, and he owed them 4 million kroners for cocaine.
That's about 27,000 euros. Gunnar was taken aback by all of this information. Was it another false lead? The source was someone who appeared to be under the influence of narcotics. Gunnar did of course tell his brothers, but Jón's family had heard so many wild and varied rumours over the previous 18 months that, odd as it sounds, Alex didn't really stick out that much.
That phone call was just another crazy story about the demise of their beloved brother. And by then, everyone close to Jón had become used to blocking those stories out, a kind of survival mode. However, a few months later, that call took on a different complexion when Gunnar met Jón's sister, Anna Hildur, and told her about Alex.
I decided to tell her about this, and I could see in her reaction that she got really shocked because I wasn't giving her new information. She actually knew the same story, but from another source.
And this second source was very close to Alex.
So she was getting it, almost firsthand, and exactly the same story that I heard myself.
What does that make you think?
I find it really odd that we're getting the same story, so specific, from completely two unrelated different angles.
The story Anna Hildur got about Alex was from a man who came to her home one evening to tell her what he'd just been told.
Then this guy comes to my house, to my garage. He knocks on the door and he was influenced by some drugs and stuff. And he was talking very fast.
This man had been talking to a friend of his who had just received a strange phone call from someone who said they'd been speaking to Alex.
Telling me the man who killed your brother called from Dublin, hysterical because he killed the wrong guy. He was supposed to kill somebody, but he killed the wrong guy. And that was my brother.
Anna Hildur later confirmed the story with the person who received the phone call, with two people now naming this person, Alex, as having killed Jón. Apart from addiction issues, there didn't seem to be any connection between these two sources.
Jón's sister wanted to speak directly to the person who spoke to Alex, but instead she told the Icelandic police about the two calls. They advised her against reaching out directly, and instead they had a look at the information. Chief Superintendent Karl Steinar Valsson.
There were of course some rumors taking place of different things, and we got all these information to the Irish authorities. But that was more their job to follow up on that. We could not have two different investigations taking place.
There's an important distinction in policing terms to make here. When a case is listed as a missing persons case, police forces in different jurisdictions around the world cooperate with each other, and that cooperation is facilitated through Interpol. But that cooperation is not formal, and it really comes down to whoever is dealing with the case on each side.
However, when an investigation becomes a criminal matter, say, like a murder inquiry, then the parameters change, and the case moves under Europol, who coordinate cross-border police operations by international agreement. In layman's terms, this changes things considerably, and the two police forces involved now formally come together to work on the investigation, and both their powers and responsibilities increase. But Jón's case is not a murder case, as it's still just listed as a missing persons case.
We've been able to make contact with the source closest to this alleged murderer, Alex. That individual is afraid to go on tape, but we did speak with them, and what they told Anna does change the story a little.
Hi Liam, I just stepped out to send you this because it's pretty late, but I just got a call from that person I was trying to reach, and when I told them why I'd been calling them, they said, "Oh, I knew he had something to do with it." So it actually sounds like they were guessing he had something to do with it and not that they knew. And what they told me is that the alleged killer never actually told them they killed Jón, but he had previously said to them that he had killed multiple people, and then they saw the news of Jón's disappearance and suspected his involvement because he was probably in Dublin at the time. It's a man with a lengthy and violent criminal record, and they are actually very, very afraid of him.
As we said earlier, there were other rumours and theories of Jón being killed. Most of them had him involved in some sort of illegal activity that led to his demise. Another story came from a prisoner in Iceland awaiting sentencing. Before he'd been sent to jail, this prisoner was sitting at a poker table in Reykjavik and reportedly saying that Jón had carried a package to Dublin but was late to the meeting place and somehow got killed because of this.
After this prisoner was incarcerated in Litlahraun, Iceland's largest prison, he actually phoned someone in Jón's family. Even though he was initially willing to speak with them, once he heard an appeal might be lodged in his own case, he refused to have any further contact with them. Then, in October 2020, an Irish newspaper published a story which referenced an Icelandic prisoner who said Jón had been killed in Dublin, but this time, the reason for Jón's death had changed.
Dramatic twist in mystery of missing Icelandic poker player. Police in Iceland have been told that Jón Jónsson was killed by accident by a fellow countryman after a falling out over squandered gambling money. An imprisoned criminal in Iceland has played an instrumental role in communicating a dramatic version of events now under investigation, which it is claimed culminated in the murder of the taxi driver.
The article stated the story had come through a security source. It appears to reference the same prisoner Jón's family had tried to contact, but now the story was different. And the money Jón had lost playing poker in Dublin, that was supposed to belong to an Icelandic criminal who was apparently not happy.
It's also alleged that Jónsson tried to leave this game when he began to lose, but he wasn't permitted to do so and was given a few slaps by other card players, also believed to be foreign nationals.
We've made contact with this now former prisoner through his lawyer, but he declined to speak on the subject. It's unclear whether Icelandic police ever spoke to him directly.
That October 2020 newspaper article was the first public mention of Jón potentially having been murdered, and it really upset his family. Not least because certain details were simply incorrect. But with all of this now public, Nina had no choice but to tell her 2 young daughters that it was being reported their dad had been murdered.
When it came in the newspapers like 2020, I had to tell them because people talk, kids talk, they're asked in school and stuff. I had to tell them and they were very angry then and just couldn't believe any of it. I think we just all have had enough then. We were just trying to cope, trying to work through this, trying to get on with our lives. I think at the time we were just all a little bit lost and trying to process this.
All of the rumours and allegations about Jón having been killed, they raise more questions than answers. So where does the truth lie? Where is Alex, the person named as Jón's alleged killer? Has he been interviewed by police? Was he even in Dublin when Jón disappeared?
We hope to answer these questions and many more in our next episode, when this story takes some further dramatic twists as new clues are given to Irish Gardaí to indicate that Jón was killed and buried in Dublin.
Good morning. Gardaí in Ballymun are renewing their appeal for public assistance in relation to tracing the whereabouts of John Johnson. The investigation team have received 2 items of anonymous correspondence. The Garda investigation team are appealing to the author or authors or any other person in relation to the correspondence to make direct contact with us in the strictest of confidence. We're also appealing for anybody else with any information.
If you have any knowledge or information on Jón Jónsson, please contact your local police station or email us documentaries@rte.ie.
Eða á hvarerjón@ruv.is.
Or you can submit a totally anonymous tip on our website rte.ie/whereisjón.
Eða ruv.is/hvar-er-Jón. Where is Jón is written and produced by me, Anna Marsibil Klausen,
and me, Liam O'Brien.
The music is composed and performed by me, Úlfur Eldjárn, with special guest Unnur Jónsdóttir on cello.
And sound design is by me, Peadar Carney.
If you've been affected by any issues raised in this episode, please visit rte.ie/helplines.
Við bendum þeim sem kunna að eiga sárt að binda á hjálparsíma Rauða krossins 1717. Until next time, thanks for listening.